first day of work, there are literally pictures like this big of Nancy Pelosi in a bathing suit in Europe, plastered all over. There was even one on my computer screen, and I had to take it down.
Hey friends, how's it going? I'm so happy to be back. Today we're going to talk about Abby Grossberg's big multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Fox News. And as always, you're going to learn a lot about the law, civil procedure, jurisdiction, and employment law through the lens of this very interesting case and kind of how these different facts unfolded. So what we have here is Abby Grossberg, a very popular and successful executive. So she worked at various kind of news outlets and then ultimately landed a big job at Fox. And she was doing the like booking guests and everything for Maria I always say her name, Bartiromo. All right. So she was doing the like booking and producing shows with Maria Bartiromo. And it was a big deal. I mean, Abby Grossberg, she would get very big and popular guests like Donald Trump, like, and like right after the election and things like that. So she was doing obviously a very, very good job. And then ultimately she started working for the Tucker Carlson show. Okay. And that is where, things got very, very hectic. So let me now walk you through this extremely interesting lawsuit, and she's suing for over $100 million. She is, the first order of business here is she's suing Fox, and she's suing like individually these different workers that harassed her. So she's suing Tucker Carlson personally, David Clark, Thomas Fox, no relation to Fox, ownership. Ralph Giordano. And so the reason why I bring that up is when you sue a corporation and then you start suing employees individually, it gets a little bit hectic. And here's the ordinarily, if it's something that's done within the scope of business, then the employer has to defend all those different employees. And then sometimes, this is where it gets kind of interesting for lawyers, sometimes the corporation may have a different interest than the individual employee. Like let's say, for example, the corporation is saying, no, it was this employee that harassed her or something, or, but that employee says, no, it wasn't, it was that person. And if they start conflicting interests, then listen to this, everybody needs their own separate law firm, okay? And so you end up with a lawsuit where you have 10 different law firms, all kind of like converging on this case. So things like that have always kind of been interesting to me, because then you have, like I said, this lawsuit, right? There's a lot of people making a lot of money. Okay, and first order of business, jurisdiction. In terms of jurisdiction, Miss Grossberg filed this lawsuit in a federal court in New York. And the reason why, you need two things to have jurisdiction. You need subject matter jurisdiction and then personal jurisdiction. Personal jurisdiction in New York is easy because that is where Fox News does its principal place of business, in New York. And then subject matter jurisdiction, you have to have either some sort of it's called a federal question, or diversity jurisdiction. Diversity jurisdiction means you have the plaintiff and defendant are from different states and you're suing over $75,000. She lives in New York, the plaintiff, and Fox News does its principal place of business is in New York. So they are not diverse in terms of citizenship of different states. So she does have a federal question. It is a federal law that you have to pay a man and a woman roughly equally for equal work. It's called the Equal Pay Act. It's a federal rule. And so if you file a lawsuit against your employer and you allege that the employer is not paying, a woman as much as a man for equal type of work, that is a federal lawsuit, or that's a federal question because it's a federal lawsuit. So you're allowed to have subject matter jurisdiction in a federal court. And that is where we did one podcast, you know what? It's been about a year. Okay, so we've been doing this for more than a year. And about 1 year ago, I'm pretty sure it was last May, although it could have been last April, so over a year ago, we did one podcast on, it was the U.S. Women's National Soccer team that sued the U.S. Soccer Federation saying, well, they were doing equal work to the guys' team and they weren't getting paid as much for equal work. That case was interesting because it settled for a lot of money. And it was interesting because they were actually getting paid a little bit more than the guys' team. But their position was, yeah, but we were 10 times better. You know, we were winning World Cups and everything where the guys' team doesn't even go to the World Cup sometimes. So we were 10 times better, but we were only getting paid maybe like less than double as much. You see what I'm saying? So they had to it was a very interesting equal pay argument that they had. So they ended up winning because they settled for a lot of money. You can watch that episode. All right. Now comes this lawsuit. So Abby Grossman is alleging that Fox News discriminated against her based on her gender. She's alleging that they threw her under the bus in this Dominion lawsuit. So that's another thing I love seeing is when there's one big lawsuit and then all of a sudden there's tons of lawsuits that go after that. So Dominion, which settled with Fox for about $800 million, they filed a lawsuit against Fox. And then in that lawsuit, they deposed all these different Fox executives, including Abby Grossberg. And she's alleging that Fox they threw the women under the bus. Like they would instead of they shielded the men from liability and embarrassment and tried to get that liability and embarrassment shifted to the women, obviously for gender, discrimination purposes. So that was another one of her allegations. She alleges that they discriminated her based on religion. She's Jewish and that they would make anti-Jewish remarks. And now let's go over this. It's a great lawsuit. Okay. What I did not realize until I read this and researched this case is that there have been a lot of lawsuits and settlements against Fox News for gender discrimination and sexual harassment. I thought it was a lot of cases that settled. And then when I read all of this and I researched it, I learned that it was what is more than a lot. A lot of cases, a ton of cases. By the way, today is May 3, 2023. It is my daughter Joanna's 10th birthday. Happy birthday, Joanna. And I thought about that because we joke instead of saying a lot of, like her and I will say a Lara. So there's a lot of lawsuits against Fox News. Okay, so I am because we don't have 6 hours to go over some of those sexual harassment lawsuits, I will only go over a very, very small portion of it. The biggest ones were against a host at Fox News. Which was the biggest lawsuits trivia? What do you think? Yep, there you go. Good job. Bill O'Reilly. All right. So Bill O'Reilly was the biggest defendant. Fox News probably paid hundreds of millions of dollars for his sexual harassment cases. So this lawsuit the reason why it's detailing this, and this goes back about 20 years, is because it kind of shows a pattern and practice at Fox News of allowing this. Okay. And I won't even say the lawsuit is so good about detailing all these different lawsuits. I mean, it goes from different hosts, to even the makeup artist department, the makeup artists were suing Fox News saying that Bill O'Reilly was, and other people would be hitting on them and that there would be different discrimination against them. So it went from the bottom to the top. All right. And then one news reporter had a big settlement. Fox News reporter Rudy Giuliani. That is a big deal to me. She went to UCLA when I was at UCLA. So she's a fellow Bruin, right? So she had a big lawsuit. And this is 2016 after she left CNN, and there was some sort of settlement. It was a confidential settlement. Anytime you read the words confidential settlement, There's an 80% chance that is a lot of money that was involved. All right, so like I said, I will not bore you. And then Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly, she wrote a book detailing different type of sexual harassment complaints and about from Bill O'Reilly, and she was an anchor on Fox News. And then there was, God, man, there's like pages and pages. I had to dread through all of these. I just did not know how rampant it was there. And this isn't a situation where, there's all these allegations. This is a situation where at Fox News, there were decades of settlements, multi-million-dollar settlements. So there are, meaning that these were, valid claims, because these big corporations, they do not just kind of, just pay off money for no reason. And by the way, when I said this whole, sometimes there's a lawsuit just based on another lawsuit, some of these cases, it got so bad that shareholders sued Fox because they said that, well, you're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to settle these sexual harassment claims and these racial discrimination claims. So you're paying that from the corporate ledger, right? And when you're paying that from the corporate ledger, you're reducing the value of the shares because you're taking money out of your corporate accounts. So that devalues the company, right? And so all these shareholders that own shares in Fox, they ended up suing the executives at different times saying, what are you doing, man? You're making our shares go down just because you can't freaking, be professional, darn it. And even the Dominion lawsuit after that $800 million settlement, there are already lawsuits, either they're already filed or they're in process that will be filed, shareholders suing Fox. Okay. Now, so the lawsuit does a great job of going over all these decades of different lawsuits for gender discrimination and things like that. I highlighted one here. Fox News paid a $1 million fine to New York City. Like even the government started going after them for these violations. And then another $15 million allegations of pay disparity based on gender by former host Melissa Francis. So she said that she was fired and it was partially due to gender discrimination, and they paid her off $15 million. Okay. Did I say enough, or do you want me to go through more and more lawsuits? So let's get to the Miss Grossberg's lawsuit here, okay? Before we go into more. Okay. So now what she is saying then, so she becomes a big shot here. She's working for Maria Bartiromo, and then she starts suffering firsthand, and her, as she's alleging here, this sort of discrimination. So some of it includes, like, they would say things like, your boss, Maria Bartiromo, she's a diva, and she does, she has to be controlled, and she has to be kind of supervised, right? Like, so there's her bosses, are actually, how corporate America works. There's bosses and there's bosses, right? So the bosses are telling her boss, Maria Bartiromo, has to be controlled and that she has to be kind of, almost babysat, right?
More responsibility? Stop with controlling your wife.
There's more. She's crazy. She's menopausal. She can become hysterical. The less she knows, the better. She could be demanding. She needs to be controlled. Those are pretty, unfair and kind of sexist remarks to make to somebody, to a woman about another woman, or, to make to a woman about any other person, right? So she's kind of suffering these. And then it becomes a lot worse, okay? At one point, she witnessed, kind of one of the directors at Fox News calling Miss Bartiromo a crazy bitch. And then other things that would happen is sometimes on her show, so Miss Grossberg and Miss Bartiromo, they would have, like let's say they would uncover like very good news, or they had a very good interview. And at one point, like they were the ones that they they got the name of the Capitol police officer who shot and killed somebody at the January 6th riot. This is one example here. So she's alleging in her complaint that what Fox News would do is they would kind of take those clips, and instead of putting it on, when Miss Bartolomo's show would be on, they would put it on like, Tucker Carlson's show or some other guy's show. Kind of like there was this pattern of how they, propped up and favored their male reporters and hosts instead of the female host. And now a very big one in this case is this thing with the Dominion lawsuit. She has evidence and she's making it clear that she knew, right? And she would tell Fox that these election lies are just that. They're lies, right? That the election was not rigged, and that, Fox is making, these big mistakes of putting all this evidence. And this is why Fox freaking settled for $800 million with Dominion, and now they're facing the lawsuit against that other election software company, and then the shareholders, right? So what she's saying here is during this time, she was, fact checking, and she had interviews, and she was telling Fox that, this is incorrect information, right? Then when Fox got sued by Dominion, the Fox attorneys told her, more or less, shut the heck up about that, don't mention that. Like, you're going to get deposed, which is a big deal because she has to, under penalty of perjury, she is going to be deposed. So they're kind of telling her, according to her lawsuit, keep a tight lip about this. Don't say certain things. Like in the deposition, a lot of different times tell them that you can't, recall certain things. And then they were asking her for things like, well, give us your personal cell phone, give us your personal computer. We want to research this. We want to research that. Now, she asked Fox's lawyers, should I get my own attorney involved? Should I hire my own attorney? They were discouraging that. Remember what I said earlier, right? You're going to have all these different executives and employees wanting to have their own law firms. And Fox, in theory, right, or according to the law, they're the ones that are on the hook to pay for all these different law firms. Sometimes they'll say in writing, no, this is an unnecessary expense. You do not need your own lawyer. We're not going to pay for that. If you want your own lawyer, you pay for that. So it's really funny because sometimes there's lawsuits over the lawyer fees for lawsuits, right? Oh, by the way, just today, May 3rd, 2023, I had a hearing in Santa Clara. It was online, and it was over the legal fees for a probate case that we won. And then we got the legal fees, and then the other party was supposed to pay everything, and then it took them a year and a half to pay it. So we had to do all this legal work just to enforce the settlement. And then after we got it finally, we had to file another, motion just to get the attorney fees to enforce the settlement agreement, So, right. So in here, what she's saying is there was this bickering with her and Fox over her getting her own lawyers. And her position is that Fox was doing everything it could to force her to kind of become either a scapegoat in this, or to keep her keep a tight lip about this. What she's saying is at first they were telling her, don't say this, don't say that. But as the depositions were coming, right, then it seemed clear that they were trying to get her to not testify that she told Fox about the, how inaccurate this was. Okay. So, and then in the deposition, this one is an interesting one. In the deposition, so Dominion is deposing Ms. Grossberg. They asked her, they said, hey, did you see this message from Tucker Carlson where he says Sidney Powell, so Sidney Powell was one of Donald Trump's hitmen. She was a woman, but she was one of the people going out there saying that the election was rigged and it was this, it was that. And Tucker Carlson sent a text saying, Sidney Powell is lying. She fucking bitch, right? And then he continuously referred to her as the C word. All right. I don't want to say that one. Okay. And then, so they showed her this in a deposition. Now, it's hard to blame Fox in a way because it wasn't like Tucker Carlson was sending those text messages to Miss Grossberg, but it was weird because he sent it to some other guy at Fox News, and then it was disclosed in the lawsuit, and then Fox News was then in a deposition, the company suing Fox News, like, wow, they really put it to them, right? Then they would show this to her, and then obviously she was upset about this, and then she said, well, how come I wasn't even notified that this would come up? Because it came up in other depositions of other employees. All right. Now there was more. Like, this is just it gets worse. Andrew Tate. You guys know who he is, right? This Andrew Tate. So at one point, Fox News, Tucker Carlson interviewed or wanted to do an interview with Andrew Tate. So Andrew Tate is this guy. He lives in Romania. I think he was in prison. Did he get out of prison yet? He got out. Yeah, I think that's right. He got out. So he would describe women as intrinsically lazy and that there's no such thing as an independent female, and that he would compare women to property. And I mean, this is, all of these other things that he would say, and he would make fun of women and blah, 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 right? Now, it's okay. I mean, he's a big popular figure, right? So it's okay that they wanted to interview him, obviously. And I don't think she took issue with that. It was just kind of like before the interview, how they talked about this guy like he was awesome. Do you see what I'm saying? And so it was more about that than the actual, like, that they want to interview him. And then Nancy Pelosi, right? They obviously don't like Nancy Pelosi. That's fine. And what she took issue with is at one point there was this picture of Nancy Pelosi in a bathing suit in Europe, and then Tucker Carlson and the gents at Fox News, they blew up the picture of her in a bathing suit and they put it everywhere. Why would they do that? Basically just to make fun of her, and they couldn't stand her, right? For this podcast purposes, I was like, maybe I got to get a picture of this so I could show it. And then I thought better, I'm like, you know what? I don't want my wife to look around and be like, why are you Googling Nancy Pelosi in a bathing suit picture, right? That would look kind of odd. So I said, I just feel like I bet, just picture it yourself, okay? So obviously she was very distraught when she had to see all of these blown up pictures of Nancy Pelosi in a bathing suit. And then another day, one of the execs, Mr. Wells, goes to her office. Now, this is when, remember, she was working for Maria Bartiromo, the other host, another host at Fox, right? So he goes into the office of the plaintiff here, Miss Abby Grossberg, and he says to her, is Maria Bartiromo effing Kevin McCarthy? Not the best way to ask, right? I mean, it is a newsworthy issue if you have a Fox reporter that's having a relationship or sexual affairs with a, Congress member. But there's a better way of saying that, right? Like you could just say, does she have a relationship with the Congress member, right? Isn't that a better way of saying it? That's probably how I would have asked it. I would not have said, is Maria Bartiromo effing Kevin McCarthy? All right, but that's how they said it. This is the, at one point in Michigan, we had 2 female candidates for governor. We had the incumbent Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and then we had the candidate Tudor Dixon, right? And then sure enough, the folks at Fox were asking each other, who is hotter? And I don't know if this is, remember we did a section on words, like new words and stuff. I wonder if this would be a new word. Okay, so who's hotter and who's more fuckable? All right, is that a word? What do you think? Right? Like, geez, come on, Fox News, show a little bit of freaking professionalism here. Okay, now the reason why I am going through all of this is because this is everything that the jury is going to listen to if this case goes to trial, right? The best part is she put in the complaint, this debate over which candidate is hotter, Governor Gretchen Whitmer or Tudor Dixon, was being moderated by Mr. Carmichael, where all the other guys were discussing this and talking about it. And then they were talking about a different a Congresswoman, Catherine Kamak, and then, in front of, like, as they were in a table, they were talking about, oh, that Congresswoman, she's fat like Kelly Clarkson. She only became a Congresswoman because she effed the right person who had the job before her. Again, this is like guys going out to the bar and drinking, but they're saying this at work, right? Okay, so I have to stop because there's just so much more. They would talk about, like there was a room where, women can like breastfeed at Fox News. It was called the Mother's Room. And then at one point, one of the execs said that was a waste of space and it should be, Tucker Carlson said that would be, let's see, let me make sure I say this correctly. When the guys were talking about it, they said it should be replaced with a room of tanning beds for the guys to tan their testicles. All right, great. Okay, so let's get now to, I just have to stop with all the sexist remarks. Okay, just because it's tough for me to read those. Okay, she also said that the part about she is, so she's Jewish, right? And she's saying that they discriminated her based on that. So let me go over those. Those were kind of, a couple of those were interesting. So she said that, around the Christmas time of last year, Mr. McCaskill installed 3 large inflatable Christmas decoration inside Tucker Carlson's booking team's seating area. And the display was distracting as loud, as well as one full-sized and one smaller-sized Christmas tree. So she's just saying that around Christmas time, like they went super overboard in terms of all of these ginormous Christmas decorations. Now, that one by itself, I don't think a jury is going to get that upset about, but it did get a little bit more tense than that. He put one tree, okay, he said, he ridiculed Mr. Aaron to other employees. So he would they would talk about each other and he would ridicule saying, oh my God, the Jews here, they have to take, Rosh Hashanah off, Yom Kippur off, and it's like back-to-back weeks. He then, during this Christmas time, he would put like a small tree next to their office and it had some sort of sign or something that said Hanukkah bush. All right, I'm gonna stop there, right? Okay, so now, what a very uncomfortable episode this is, and the fact that it's so uncomfortable just goes to show it's gonna be a very, very tough case for Fox News, right? Because all of this in excruciating detail. I mean, I talked about it for about 15 minutes. Can you imagine a jury sitting in the jury room for 3 weeks hearing all of this, right? And for 3 weeks hearing all this after hearing of how all of this happened over the several decades and that Fox News didn't fix all. The reason why that is admissible and relevant evidence is because if you can show that this is a pattern and practice and that they like willfully and recklessly just said, we don't care about this, then you could potentially get what's called punitive damages, which means in addition to what would be fair to compensate her, you can get something that would be like, let's just punish Fox News for extra amounts. Okay, so now let's talk about, the very, very important question: how much, right? When we talk about how much, this is like if somebody brought here a nice Picasso painting, right? So they have here this amazing Picasso painting, right? And then they're saying that, we're going to sell this Picasso painting, right? So you would ask, right? Yeah, there you go. How much, right? How much are you going to get? So I would say that this case, is the value of this case may be like a Picasso painting. Not one of his big paintings, but maybe one of his, middle range paintings. So she's asking for the punitive damages. She is asking for, because, she's asking that when she's not at Fox, it may take her 6 years to get kind of like a suitable job, for example. And if she's getting, whatever, let's say $2 million a year, or whatever she's getting, that's a lot of what we call lost wages, right? And then the kind of emotional distress. I don't know. What would you give her? Mateo, give me a number and triple it. 30 million? Is that after you tripled it or before you tripled it? After. Okay, so you give her 10 million and you're saying 30. Okay. So Mateo, if he was on a jury, by the way, that's all it is. That's how we do this in law. It's really weird. People, they think there's some sort of formula, and the only formula is what would a jury give her, right? This is a federal case. So there may be, 10 jurors. And so the question is, what would 10 jurors agree on? Mateo's saying 30 million. If I was on the jury and if I had to sit through 3 weeks of this, and it might be longer, it might be like 5 weeks. The first 2 weeks might be the other cases that they had to settle. And then the next 3 weeks would be her case. If I had to listen to 5 weeks of this, I talked about it for about 30 minutes and I need to take the rest of the month off, and it's only May 3rd. What's that? $1 million a minute, right? 30 minutes, right? Exactly, right? So if I had to do it for 5 weeks, I would say, and evidence comes in, Fox is worth billions of dollars, they're allowed to know that. They're going to know that. So it's just like, what? If the judge allows them to come up with punitive damages, I don't think it's impossible that they would award her 200 million, right? Like, isn't that a possibility? Right? And what do you think, Zeke? Zeke is pissed off right now. How much would you give her?
My offer is this. Nothing.
Zeke said nothing. I don't know. He's smiling though. He's just joking. I think he's joking. Okay. So I don't know. But by the way, you could get a jury that says something like, F her. I'll give her nothing, right? There is a chance that you get a jury that says we won't give her anything. Big effing deal. Let me tell you about my work. I went to work and my boss freaking took off his pants, right? And I didn't get nothing for that. You could do that. Like it's a very unpredictable. It's very unpredictable when you ask a jury to give you money for emotional damages. If it's so you could get juries that say, I'll give her 30 million, I'll give her 100 million. You could have a jury that says, I won't give her $1. Like, screw her. She doesn't deserve it. You put up with it. Okay. And this is the tough one. I kind of dig it when I have cases where, I have a case where the client, basically the guy, her boss was kind of, he would say some off color remarks about her, and she'd say, well, what would I get? What would I get? Like, he's offering $30,000. What would I get? And I say, I don't know. You could get 100. It wasn't that. Like, he said something like, you look a lot better when you wear makeup, things like that, right? It wasn't that big a deal. A jury might say, okay, or a jury might say how sexist, how unreal and unfair, give her $1 billion. I don't think she'd get $1 billion. And in fact, I am positive she wouldn't get that much. All right. But she could get, whatever. Right. But it's impossible to predict that. So her case is an interesting case in the sense that most of her damages would be for this emotional distress. And then when she's asking for punitive damages, she would be, a jury would then have to sit in a room and the judge would tell the jury, okay, here is a $sign with a blank next to it. And what I want you to do, jury, is fill in that blank for emotional distress and then fill in that blank for punitive damages and fill in that blank for this and that. My gut feeling is that if she could get $50 million, she would take it. I think if she had $50 million on the table and I was her lawyer, I'd say settle, right? If they were offering her like nothing or only like $1 million or $2, I think that it would be worth going to trial. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's kind of how the lawyers, appraise these cases, because at the, when it comes to this case and if there's a settlement and whatnot, that's what we are as lawyers. We become like these appraisers. I think that painting is worth $200 million. I think that painting is worth blah, blah, blah. All right. Great to see you folks. I'm super excited. Please, I got a lot of comments over the week and keep them coming. I love hearing from you folks and I'm super excited. We'll catch up next week.